Are you ready to take your English listening and speaking skills to the next level? What if I told you that the biggest barrier to fluency isn't your vocabulary or your grammar, but something much simpler? The gap between understanding English in a classroom and using it in the real world. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where you know the words, but you struggle to follow a fast-paced conversation? Or perhaps you want to express your thoughts more clearly, more confidently, but you hesitate, searching for the right phrase. In today's episode, we are going to close that gap together. Welcome to English in Fluency. I'm your host, Alex, and I'm so glad you've decided to join me today. If you're new here, we create daily episodes designed to help you improve your English in the most natural way possible, through stories. In this episode, you won't be memorizing lists of words. Instead, you will hear stories about real-life situations, filled with the kind of useful vocabulary and expressions you hear every day. Listening to these stories will train your ear to understand English as it's truly spoken. And by repeating the phrases and thinking through the scenarios with me, you will build the confidence to improve your own speaking skills. Let's begin with a simple question to get us started. Have you ever had a moment of confusion in an English conversation? Maybe a time when you completely misunderstood what someone said. Imagine ordering food in a restaurant, only to receive something you didn't ask for, or talking to a coworker and realizing later that you missed a crucial piece of information. These moments can feel a little frustrating, can't they? But they are also incredible learning opportunities. Let me share a personal story about a friend of mine, Liam. He moved to Toronto from abroad for a new job. He was really excited, but also quite nervous about using his English every single day. On his first morning, he decided to walk to a local bakery to get breakfast. He wanted to order a bagel with cream cheese and a coffee. He had practiced the words in his head. He walked up to the counter and said, with as much confidence as he could, "Can I have a bagel and a coffee, please?" But the person behind the counter, a busy young woman with a friendly but hurried expression, looked at him with a slight frown and asked, "Sorry, what was that?" Liam felt a small knot of panic in his stomach. He repeated himself, trying to speak even more clearly. "A bagel, please." The cashier still seemed confused. He could feel his face getting warm, and the line of people behind him was growing. Just as he was about to give up and just point at something, another customer in line leaned forward and said to the cashier, "I think he means a bagel," stretching the sound out. Suddenly, the cashier's face lit up in understanding. "Oh, a bagel? Sure thing. What kind would you like?" This tiny moment taught Liam a huge lesson. It wasn't that he didn't know the word. He did. But the way he pronounced it was just different enough from the local accent that it caused confusion. He realized that hearing words spoken in real, fast-paced environments was completely different from learning them from an app or a teacher. This is precisely why active listening is so vital. The more you immerse yourself in the sounds of real English, the more your brain adjusts to different accents and speeds. When you start hearing common phrases over and over, you not only understand them better, but you also build the confidence to use them correctly yourself. Now, let's consider another common real-life situation. My cousin, Chloe, relocated to London for a marketing position. Her English was excellent on paper, but when she arrived, She found it incredibly difficult to keep up with conversations in the office. People spoke quickly, used a lot of slang she'd never heard, and often talked over each other in meetings. One day, during an important project meeting, her manager turned to her and said, "Chloe, could you touch base with the design team about the new campaign?" Chloe was completely lost. Touch base? What did that mean? Her mind raced. Was she supposed to physically go and touch something at their desks? It sounded strange. She felt too embarrassed to ask and just nodded, hoping she could figure it out later. After the meeting, she discreetly asked a friendly colleague, who explained that to touch base simply means to get in touch with someone, to check in, or discuss something briefly. This small, seemingly simple phrase was a major key to her understanding of office communication. It was a light bulb moment for her. From that day on, she started keeping a small notebook where she would write down any new idioms or expressions she heard. She didn't just write down the meaning, she wrote down the context. Who said it, and in what situation? So here is a powerful tip for you. When you encounter a new phrase, don't just look up its definition and move on. Listen for it. Pay attention to how it's used in real conversations you hear in podcasts, movies, or in your own life. Try saying it out loud to yourself. Then, try to use it in one of your own sentences, even if you're just talking to yourself. The more you actively practice using new expressions, the more naturally they will come to you when you need them. Now, I want you to take a moment to reflect on your own journey. Have you ever been in a situation where you felt completely lost in an English conversation? Maybe you misheard a critical word, or you weren't familiar with a particular expression. What did you do? How did you navigate that moment of confusion? Imagine you're checking into a hotel after a long flight. You're tired, and the receptionist says with a smile, "Would you like a wake-up call?" If you've never heard that phrase before, you might think they're asking if you need help to literally wake up in your life, something profound. But in reality, a wake-up call is simply when the hotel staff calls your room at a requested time in the morning to make sure you wake up. These small but significant misunderstandings happen all the time in the real world. That's why listening to authentic conversations, like the ones we explore in this podcast, is the most effective way to prepare yourself and truly improve your English. Let's do a quick practice exercise together right now. I'm going to say a short, useful sentence, and I want you to repeat it after me, paying attention to the rhythm and flow. Ready? I'd like to order a coffee, please. Now you try. Great. The emphasis is slightly on coffee. Let's try another one. This is a very useful phrase when you're feeling unsure. Could you repeat that, please? Notice how the tone of my voice goes up at the end, making it a polite question. These are simple, polite phrases that can be your best friends in everyday situations. The more you listen to them, and the more you practice saying them, the more your confidence will grow. Let's continue with another story. A few years ago, my friend Ben moved to Manchester for a new job in software development. He was incredibly excited because it was a lifelong dream of his to work for an international tech company. He had studied English for many years, but his learning had been very academic, focused on grammar rules and reading complex articles. He believed he was fully prepared, but when he arrived in Manchester, he encountered an unexpected and humbling challenge. Real-life conversations were far more difficult to understand than he had ever imagined. On his first day at his new office, his manager, a kind woman named Olivia, introduced him to the team. Everyone was warm and welcoming, but they spoke with a speed and used a variety of expressions that were completely foreign to him. Things he'd never come across in his textbooks. During lunchtime, one of his new colleagues, a cheerful guy named Sam, turned to him and said, "Hey, Ben, fancy grabbing a bite?" Ben was completely stumped. He thought to himself, "Fancy? Grab a bite? What am I supposed to grab?" He hesitated for a second, a polite but confused smile on his face, and then just said, "Okay." He followed Sam and a few others to a nearby pub, still feeling completely unsure of what was happening. When they arrived, and everyone started ordering sandwiches and pies, it finally clicked. Grabbing a bite was just a casual way of saying, going to get something to eat. It was such a simple, common phrase, but because he had never heard it used in a real, spontaneous conversation, it had thrown him off completely. That day, he had a profound realization. Even with a large vocabulary, he needed much more practice listening to how people actually speak in their daily lives. Ben was determined to improve. He created a new plan for himself. Every morning, during his walk to the office, he started listening to English podcasts about technology, a topic he was passionate about. At lunchtime, instead of sitting at his desk alone, he made a conscious effort to join his colleagues in the break room. At first, it was incredibly challenging. He didn't always catch every word, and he often felt nervous about saying the wrong thing. But instead of letting his fear keep him silent, he started to ask clarifying questions. He would say things like, "I'm sorry, what does that mean exactly?" Or, "Could you say that again, a bit slower?" He was relieved to find that his colleagues were more than happy to explain. Little by little, his ear for the language grew sharper, and his ability to understand them improved day by day. One afternoon, he was in a project meeting, and his manager said, "All right, everyone, let's wrap things up for today." This time, instead of feeling a wave of confusion, Ben knew exactly what she meant. "Let's finish the meeting." A small smile spread across his face. He remembered how just a few weeks earlier, that simple phrase would have left him feeling lost and behind. This story holds a vital lesson for every English learner. Sometimes, the individual words in a phrase aren't difficult at all, but the way they are used together in a natural, conversational context can be very different from what you learn in a formal setting. This is why consistent listening practice is the secret ingredient to fluency. The more you listen to natural, everyday English, the more comfortable and confident you will feel when it's your turn to speak. Now, let's think about another real-life scenario that many of us face: traveling. Imagine you're traveling to an English-speaking country for the first time. You arrive at the airport, feeling a mix of excitement and exhaustion, and you have to go through immigration. The immigration officer looks at you and asks, "What's the purpose of your visit?" If you're not familiar with this standard question, you might feel a surge of anxiety. What does purpose mean in this context? Are they asking about my life's purpose, my job, the specific reason for my trip? What is the right way to answer? However, if you have practiced listening to common travel-related conversations, You'll know that the expected answer is something straightforward and simple, like, I'm here for tourism, or I'm here on business, or I'm visiting my family. A few months ago, my cousin, Maya, traveled to Australia. She was quite confident in her English abilities, but the formal setting of the airport made her nervous. When she got to the immigration desk, the officer asked her, "Do you have anything to declare?" Maya froze for a moment. The word declare sounded so serious and official, like a legal term. Her mind started racing. Did I pack something I shouldn't have? Am I in some kind of trouble? She took a slow, deep breath to calm her nerves and said politely, "I'm sorry. I don't understand. Could you repeat that?" The officer, seeing her confusion, calmly rephrased the question. "Are you carrying any food items, alcohol, or large amounts of cash with you?" Now she understood perfectly. Declare, in this context, just meant to formally report something you are bringing into the country. She smiled with relief and said, "Oh no, I don't have anything to declare." The officer nodded, stamped her passport, and let her pass. Later on, she told me about the situation, and we had a good laugh about it. She realized that the problem wasn't a lack of English knowledge. It was simply a lack of exposure to that specific phrase in a real-life context. This is exactly why listening to natural, unscripted conversations is so incredibly helpful. The more you hear these common phrases used in their proper context, the easier it will be for you to understand them and respond with confidence when you encounter them yourself. So, let's do a quick practice exercise right now. I'm going to say some common questions you might hear at an airport. I want you to listen carefully and then repeat after me. Ready? Where are you traveling from? Now you say it. Great. Try to match the rhythm. Here's another one. Do you have a return ticket? Go ahead and try saying it aloud. The more you practice both listening to and speaking these phrases, the more confident and prepared you will feel in real situations. Now let's talk about another important moment where listening skills can make a huge difference. Ordering food and drinks at a restaurant or cafe. Imagine you're in a busy, trendy cafe in downtown Vancouver. You walk up to the counter, and the barista says cheerfully, "What can I get for you?" If you've prepared for this moment, you can simply reply, "I'd like a cappuccino, please." But what happens if they follow up with a question you're not expecting, like, "For here or to go?" If you're not familiar with this common North American phrase, you might feel a moment of panic. A friend of mine, Leo, had this very experience when he traveled to the United States for the first time. He walked into a coffee shop in Seattle and ordered a latte. The cashier asked him, "For here or to go?" Leo hesitated. He had never heard this phrase before. He quickly tried to work it out in his head. He guessed that to go might mean take away, so he said, "To go." Luckily, his guess was correct, and the cashier handed him his latte in a paper cup. But in that brief moment, he felt a wave of nervousness because he wasn't 100% sure. After that experience, he started to pay very close attention to how people ordered food and drinks. He noticed that in the US and Canada, people often say, "Can I get a?" instead of the more formal, "I would like." He also learned that "that'll be" is a very common way for cashiers to tell you the total price. For example, the cashier might say, "Okay, that'll be $5.50. If you don't recognize this phrase, you might not even realize they're telling you the price. But once you hear it a few times, it becomes completely natural. This is why immersing yourself in real-life listening is so powerful. The more you hear these everyday phrases, the more confident you will feel when it's your turn to speak. So, let's practice. I'll say some common phrases you might hear in a cafe. Listen and repeat after me. What can I get for you? Now you say it. Excellent. Here's another one. That'll be $5.50. Try saying it aloud. When you listen carefully and repeat, your brain gets used to the natural sounds and rhythms of English, and speaking becomes much easier and more automatic. Let's continue with another crucial area where your listening and speaking skills truly come to life. Making small talk. Small talk is the kind of light, casual conversation you have with people in everyday situations, like when you're meeting someone new at a party or waiting in line at the post office. It can feel a bit intimidating at first, especially for intermediate learners, but once you get the hang of it, it becomes one of the most valuable tools for improving your fluency and building connections. A few months ago, my friend Sophia, who is originally from Italy, moved to a new city in the UK for work. She had studied English for many years and was very good with grammar and vocabulary, but she was incredibly nervous about speaking with strangers, especially when it came to making small talk. She felt that small talk was trivial and not as important as knowing formal English. However, she quickly discovered that it was a huge and essential part of daily culture. Her first week at her new job was a bit overwhelming. During her lunch break, a colleague named Tom invited her to join him and a few others in the office kitchen. Sophia was unsure what she should say. She didn't know these people very well, and she was afraid she might say something awkward or incorrect. When they all sat down to eat, Tom turned to her and asked, "So, how was your weekend?" Sophia froze for a second. In Italy, people often share detailed stories about their weekend, but she didn't know if she should share something personal or just keep her answer brief and simple. She finally decided to play it safe and said, "It was good. I went for a walk in the park." That was a safe answer, she thought. But then Tom smiled and said, "That sounds lovely. What's the park like here? I haven't been yet." Sophia realized that this wasn't an interrogation. It was just a friendly way to start a conversation, much like asking someone about their hobbies or interests. It wasn't a deep philosophical discussion. It was simply a way to connect. Over the next few weeks, she became much more comfortable with small talk. She started asking her colleagues simple questions like, "Are you enjoying this sunny weather?" Or, "What do you like to do in your free time?" She was amazed at how easy it became to start and maintain these little conversations. Through these simple interactions, Sophia learned something incredibly important. Small talk isn't just about filling silence. It's about building relationships and showing interest in other people. The more you practice, the more natural it feels. And when you listen carefully to others, you learn a wealth of useful phrases and expressions that help you sound more natural yourself. For example, when Tom asked about Sophia's weekend, he didn't use a formal structure like, "What activities did you engage in over the weekend?" Instead, he used the simple, common phrase, "How was your weekend?" When you hear these expressions used repeatedly in real conversations, they start to stick in your memory, and soon you'll find yourself using them without even thinking about it. Here's another useful tip when it comes to small talk. People often don't expect long, detailed answers. It's more about the back and forth exchange. You give a simple response and then ask the other person about their experience. When you're practicing, listen for these small cues. For instance, someone might say, "The weekend was great, but I wish it was longer." This kind of comment shows they're offering a piece of personal feeling, but they're also creating an opening for you to share your own experience too. Sophia started using this technique, and she found that it helped her speak with much more confidence. Instead of worrying about crafting the perfect, grammatically flawless sentence, she focused on the flow of the conversation and on learning new, natural phrases. One of the most useful phrases Sophia picked up during her first few weeks was, "What about you?" When someone asked her how her weekend was, she learned that it was perfectly natural and friendly to respond with something like, "It was really nice, thanks. I just relaxed at home. What about you?" These small, everyday conversations are the building blocks of fluency. They will help you improve your listening and speaking skills, and you'll start to feel much more confident and at ease in social situations. This is a skill that can't be learned from a textbook alone. It's about actively engaging with people, paying close attention to how they speak, and practicing how you respond. Now, let's shift gears and talk about another challenge that can be tricky for English learners: understanding different accents. When you are learning English, you might find it difficult to understand the variety of accents and regional variations. Whether it's a British, American, Australian, Scottish, or Irish accent, or even different accents within the same city, getting used to this diversity is a key part of mastering the language. Let's take a step back for a moment. I want you to think about your own journey with English. Have you had moments where you felt unsure or confused during a conversation? Maybe you were listening to someone who spoke very quickly, or perhaps you didn't understand a particular slang word or idiom. It happens to every single one of us, and it's a natural part of the process of learning a new language. The most important thing is not to give up. You must keep practicing and keep engaging with real conversations. Every single time you listen, you improve just a little bit more. Remember, English isn't just a subject you study from books. It's a living language that you experience through conversations, stories, and real-life interactions. Whether it's making small talk with a new friend, ordering food at a restaurant, or simply listening to someone share a story, every moment is a valuable chance to improve. By listening to real stories, you begin to notice the natural rhythm and music of English. You learn how words flow together seamlessly in sentences, how people express their emotions in different situations, and how to use the right phrases at the right time. This is the kind of immersive practice that will help you sound more natural and feel more confident when you speak. When I was visiting New York a couple of years ago, I got a little bit lost while walking around downtown. I decided to stop and ask someone for directions. I approached a friendly-looking person and said, "Excuse me, can you tell me how to get to the nearest subway station?" He looked at me and said, "Yeah, sure. Just go straight ahead, take a left at the lights, and you'll see it on your right." That was simple enough, but I was surprised at how incredibly fast he spoke. He didn't slow down to explain, and I had to listen with intense focus to catch all the details. In that moment, I realized how crucial it is to focus not just on the individual words, but on how they are delivered. Native speakers often speak quickly, and they use shortcuts or expressions that might not be in your textbooks. For instance, when the man said, "Take a left at the lights," he was using a common, casual phrase that means "turn left at the traffic lights." It was informal and rapid, but once I understood the phrase, I realized how useful it would be to remember for future conversations. To improve your skills in asking for and understanding directions, you should start by learning these common phrases and expressions. You'll often hear people say things like, "Go straight," "Turn left," "It's around the corner," and "It's just a few blocks away." These are all incredibly useful phrases that you will encounter frequently. When you're practicing, listen to how native speakers use these phrases in everyday situations. By listening to podcasts, watching YouTube videos, or enjoying movies, you'll be able to hear these expressions in many different contexts. After practicing asking for directions in English, try to actively imagine yourself in that situation. Maybe you're lost in a new city and you need to ask for help. Practicing these types of conversations in your mind, or even better, aloud, will help you prepare for when you're actually in that situation. Let's move on to another practical area that will help you with your listening and speaking. Handling problems and complaints in English. This is another important part of everyday life. Whether it's at a shop, in a hotel, or during an interaction with customer service, knowing how to express your problems clearly and politely is an essential skill. I had an experience a few months ago when I was staying in a hotel during a business trip. I checked into my room, but when I tried to connect to the Wi-Fi, it wasn't working. I called the front desk and said, "Excuse me, the Wi-Fi isn't working in my room. Could you help me?" The receptionist on the phone replied, "I'm very sorry to hear that. Let me check and see what I can do." After a few minutes, she called me back and explained that the Wi-Fi was temporarily down in the entire building, but that they were working on fixing it as quickly as possible. She was polite and apologetic, which immediately made me feel better about the situation. In this situation, I learned a few things that I want to share with you. First, when you have a problem, it's important to remain calm and explain the issue clearly. You can use phrases like, "I'm having trouble with," or "there seems to be a problem with," to describe the situation. Second, if someone is trying to solve the problem for you, you should listen carefully to their response. They might use phrases like, "Let me check on that for you," or "I'll have someone take care of it." These are polite ways to show that they are taking your complaint seriously. By listening to real-life situations like these, you'll be much better prepared to handle problems in English. The more you practice these types of conversations, the easier it will be to stay calm and confident when something goes wrong. And remember, don't be afraid to ask for clarification if you don't understand something. You can always say, "Could you explain that again?" Or, "I didn't quite catch that. Could you repeat it?" Mastering these interactions is a huge step toward real-world fluency. Imagine walking into a bustling cafe on a cool London morning. The rich aroma of freshly brewed coffee and baked pastries fills the air. As you approach the counter, the barista greets you with a cheerful, What can I get for you today? For a moment, you might pause. This casual, friendly phrasing could be quite different from the formal textbook language you've learned, like, "How may I help you?" You reply confidently, "I'd like a latte, please." Then the barista adds, "That'll be $3.50. Would you like any pastry with that?" In that single, quick interaction, you realize that real-life English is fast, friendly, and often beautifully informal. Now, take a moment and ask yourself, have you ever been surprised by the casual tone in a familiar situation? How did you respond when someone used expressions that you hadn't practiced in a classroom setting? I remember one day when I was visiting a small independent cafe in Shoreditch. I had expected a polite, somewhat formal exchange, yet the friendly, informal language caught me off guard, in the best way possible. This experience taught me that adapting to different conversational styles is absolutely key to understanding and participating in everyday conversations. To practice this, try to imagine yourself in that cafe. Visualize hearing, "What can I get for you?" and responding with your order. Repeat these phrases aloud until they feel completely natural and become a part of your active, ready-to-use vocabulary. Let's move on to another very common scenario. Asking for directions in a busy city. Picture yourself in New York City, surrounded by the constant hum of traffic and the lively chatter of pedestrians. A few years back, I found myself wandering the vibrant streets of Manhattan, trying to find my way to a well-known museum. I approached a local and asked, "Excuse me, could you please tell me how to get to the Metropolitan Museum of Art?" The local replied quickly, "Sure, just go straight for 2 blocks, then turn left at the big intersection, and you'll see the museum on your right." I want you to listen carefully to this exchange. Notice the clear, concise instructions that are given very quickly. Ask yourself, have you ever been in a situation where someone spoke too fast or used unfamiliar phrases when giving directions? How did you handle it? If you're not sure, consider practicing by repeating the directions aloud. Straight for 2 blocks, left at the intersection, museum on the right. This kind of repetition builds your confidence in both understanding and using these essential everyday phrases. Now, let's explore the art of making small talk, which is a fundamental part of building relationships in both personal and professional settings. I recall an afternoon at a local community event in London where I met a gentleman named Noah. He started our conversation with a simple, "Lovely weather today, isn't it?" I responded, "Yes, it's a beautiful day. I love how the sunshine brightens everything." That simple exchange opened up a pleasant and easy discussion about our favorite outdoor activities, local parks, and plans for the weekend. Think about your own experiences. What topics do you naturally bring up when you're meeting someone new? You can practice small talk by asking simple questions like, "How are you today?" or "What have you been up to lately?" The more you practice, the easier and more natural it becomes to keep a conversation flowing. Let's add another layer by considering professional settings. Imagine you're in a virtual meeting with colleagues from all around the world. Your manager might say, "Let's circle back to that point later." At first, you might wonder what circle back means in this context. It simply means to return to a topic later in the discussion. When you encounter unfamiliar phrases in professional meetings, it's a great idea to jot them down and ask a trusted colleague for clarification later if needed. Reflect for a moment. Have you ever been confused by business jargon or corporate idioms? Practice by repeating phrases like "circle back" until they become second nature to you. Next, let's consider the unique challenges of phone conversations. Unlike face-to-face talks, you have to rely solely on audio cues, without the help of body language or facial expressions. I once made an important call to resolve an issue with my internet connection. The customer service representative, David, said very clearly, "Can you please describe the problem you are experiencing?" I explained, "My connection keeps dropping, and it's very frustrating." David replied calmly, "I understand. Let me run a diagnostic test on your line." His calm, clear tone immediately helped me feel at ease. Picture yourself in a similar situation and practice repeating phrases like, "Could you please repeat that?" or "I'm sorry, I didn't catch that." These exercises can prepare you for real-life calls where clarity is absolutely crucial. Now, let's explore a situation many of us face when traveling. Imagine arriving at an airport in an English-speaking country. The announcements over the intercom might sound something like this. Due to inclement weather, your flight will be delayed by 30 minutes. In that moment, you might feel anxious if you're not familiar with a formal phrase like inclement weather. Later, when you ask a staff member, "Could you tell me what the delay is about?" they explain, "The delay is because of bad weather conditions." Consider practicing these scenarios at home. Repeat key phrases such as "flight delayed" and "inclement weather" until you feel comfortable understanding and even using them. Another everyday conversation involves discussing hobbies and interests. Picture a quiet evening where you meet someone new at a local event. They ask, "What do you enjoy doing in your free time?" You might reply, "I love reading, hiking, and trying out new recipes." This kind of conversation is a perfect opportunity to learn and use descriptive adjectives and expand your vocabulary. Think about your favorite hobby. What words would you use to describe it? Practicing these questions and answers builds not only your vocabulary, but also your confidence in sharing personal experiences. Let's engage in an interactive exercise right now. I want you to repeat after me. How are you today? What have you been up to lately? The weather is really nice, isn't it? I'd love to hear more about that. Take your time with each sentence. Practice them until they roll off your tongue effortlessly. This kind of repetition builds muscle memory for natural, flowing conversation. Switching gears, let's delve into conversations at work, specifically handling meetings and presentations. I remember a meeting where our team leader said, "We need to finalize the project timeline by Friday." A colleague named Isabella then asked, "Can everyone please confirm their availability for a meeting on Thursday?" You might respond with, "I'm available on Thursday, and I'll send a calendar invite shortly." Reflect on this dialogue. Notice how clear, concise language is used to coordinate plans. If you work in a professional environment, practicing such exchanges can prepare you for real-life scenarios where accuracy and clarity are essential. Another memorable experience was during a business conference call. The host said, "Let's wrap up the discussion and summarize our key points." At that moment, I repeated the sentence in my head to make sure I fully understood. After the call, I reviewed the phrases "wrap up," "summarize," and "key points." These are extremely common in professional settings. Ask yourself, How many times have you encountered these expressions in meetings? Now is a great time to practice them. Say them aloud until they become a familiar part of your working vocabulary. Let's consider a more challenging scenario. Interacting with service providers when something goes wrong. Imagine you've booked a hotel room and you find that the Wi-Fi isn't working. You call the front desk and say, "Excuse me, the Wi-Fi in my room isn't working. Could you please help me?" The receptionist responds, "I'm sorry for the inconvenience. Let me check on that for you." This exchange uses straightforward language, but it's crucial to speak clearly and listen carefully. Think about how you would handle a similar situation. Practice these key phrases and consider recording yourself to see where you might improve. Now, picture yourself in a local market in Australia. A vendor enthusiastically shouts, "This is a ripper deal!" At first, you might wonder what ripper means. Later, you learn that it is Australian slang for excellent or fantastic. This is a prime example of how listening to real-life conversations teaches you regional vocabulary and idioms that you might not find in a textbook. Reflect on any slang or idiomatic expressions you've heard recently. Write them down and try using them in your own sentences. Over time, these expressions will become a natural part of your speech. Another engaging scenario involves social gatherings with family and friends. Imagine sitting around a dinner table where everyone is sharing stories about their day. One relative asks, "What was the best part of your day?" You respond, "I had a wonderful conversation with a new friend at the cafe." This warm, informal exchange is common in family settings. Think about the simple yet powerful words you use during these conversations. Words like wonderful, enjoyable, and delightful. Practicing these expressions in a relaxed setting builds your confidence and reinforces your natural speaking style. Now, let's talk about the role of digital communication in modern English practice. Email, instant messaging, and video calls have become integral parts of our daily lives. For example, when writing an email for work, you might start with, "Dear Mr. Johnson, I hope this email finds you well," and close with, "Sincerely, Alex." On the other hand, when texting a friend, you might simply write, "Hey, are we still on for dinner tonight?" Notice how the language shifts dramatically depending on the medium and the relationship. Consider your own experiences with digital communication. Which style do you find most challenging? Practice both formal and informal writing to build a balanced skill set. Let's move on to a scenario involving cultural events. Imagine attending a local art exhibition where a curator is explaining a painting. They might say, "This artwork reflects the artist's inner turmoil during a time of great change." You might ask, "What inspired this particular style?" The curator could reply, "The use of bold colors and dynamic brushstrokes represents the conflict between tradition and modernity." This conversation not only introduces you to artistic vocabulary, but also encourages you to express abstract ideas. Think about how you would describe a piece of art or a cultural event. Practicing such descriptive language can enrich your vocabulary and make your conversations more engaging and sophisticated. Another practical scenario is participating in academic discussions. Picture yourself in a university lecture where the professor states, "Today, we will explore the impact of global warming on urban development." After the lecture, you approach the professor and ask, "Could you please elaborate on the strategies cities are using to combat climate change?" This type of dialogue requires both active listening and the ability to ask thoughtful, clarifying questions. Consider how you might summarize what you've learned in your own words. This practice reinforces your understanding and prepares you for future academic conversations. In addition to structured scenarios, spontaneous conversations are an important part of real-life communication. Imagine you're at a community park and you overhear a group discussing the latest local news. One person remarks, "The new park renovations have really transformed this area." You might join in by saying, "I agree, the improvements are fantastic. Have you noticed the new playground features?" These unscripted interactions offer a chance to practice impromptu speaking and active listening. Ask yourself, when was the last time you joined a spontaneous conversation? What strategies can you use to smoothly enter such discussions? Now, let's explore a scenario that many of us face online: participating in discussion forums and chat rooms. In these digital spaces, language is often informal, filled with abbreviations and emoticons. You might see a post like, "Has anyone tried the new cafe downtown? It's lit." Even if the language is casual, it still provides valuable insights into current slang and conversational style. Spend some time browsing online groups or forums in English. Observe the way people interact and try to incorporate some of these expressions into your own spoken or written communication. Consider also the challenge of handling disagreements or misunderstandings in conversation. Even with clear language, miscommunications can occur. I recall a conversation with a friend where our opinions on a current event differed. Instead of letting the discussion become tense, we used phrases like, "I see your point, but I have a different perspective," and "Can we clarify our thoughts further?" Using phrases like these helps keep the conversation respectful and constructive. Reflect on any disagreements you've experienced. What language could have helped smooth the situation? Practice using such phrases in role-playing exercises with a friend, or by recording yourself until they feel natural. Let's now shift to another rich source of language practice: storytelling. Telling your own story not only improves your speaking skills, but also makes your conversation more engaging. Imagine recounting a memorable day when everything went unexpectedly. You could start with, "One day I found myself lost in a busy city, and that experience taught me the value of patience and resourcefulness." As you narrate, include vivid details. Describe the sounds, the sights, and even your emotions. Storytelling helps you organize your thoughts and express yourself in a structured, compelling manner. Think about a recent experience and try to narrate it in English. This exercise will boost both your vocabulary and your confidence in speaking. Interactive exercises are an essential part of this journey. I invite you now to repeat the following sentences with me, paying close attention to the natural rhythm and emphasis. "I appreciate your help." Could you please repeat that? "I'm sorry, I didn't catch that." "That sounds interesting." "I would love to join you." Repeat each sentence several times until it feels comfortable and natural. These exercises are designed to build your muscle memory for common conversational phrases, making them readily available to you in real-time conversations. Now, imagine yourself at a live music concert. The announcer's voice, full of energy, fills the venue as they say, "Ladies and gentlemen, get ready for an unforgettable performance by tonight's headliner." Such vibrant expressions and high-energy announcements require you to match the speaker's enthusiasm. Visualize yourself in that setting. What would you say if you wanted to complement the performance? Perhaps, the energy on stage is electrifying. Practicing such dynamic language can help you adjust your tone and pace to suit different emotional contexts. Next, picture yourself in a quiet bookstore. You approach a clerk and ask, "Could you recommend a good mystery novel?" The clerk smiles and replies, "Certainly." This bestseller has a captivating plot and intriguing characters. This simple interaction introduces descriptive adjectives and polite inquiries that are common in everyday conversations. How would you describe your favorite book or genre? Spend a few moments thinking about this and practice forming sentences that describe your interests in detail. Let's turn our attention now to public services. Imagine you're at a government office applying for a new passport. The clerk greets you with, "Good morning. How may I assist you today?" You reply, "I need to renew my passport, please." The conversation continues with precise questions and answers, such as, "Could you please provide your current passport number?" And, "Do you have all the required documents?" These formal exchanges require you to be both clear and concise. Practice such dialogues with a friend or even role-play them in front of a mirror. Notice how using polite expressions like "please" and "thank you" makes the conversation smoother and more effective. Another scenario involves visiting a healthcare facility. Imagine sitting in a doctor's office where the physician asks, "How have you been feeling recently?" You might answer, "I have been experiencing headaches and a bit of fatigue." The doctor then follows up with, "Can you describe the nature of your headaches?" Such conversations demand clear communication about your symptoms. Practice describing common health issues in simple, direct language. Repeating phrases like, "I feel unwell," or "The pain is moderate and sometimes sharp," will prepare you for real-life medical discussions. Digital communication also plays a crucial role in modern English. Consider video calls, where you see not only the speaker's words, but also their facial expressions and gestures. In a recent video meeting, a colleague said, "Can everyone see my screen?" and quickly followed up with, "Please let me know if you have any questions." Video calls require a blend of clear speaking and active listening. Practice these interactions by joining online webinars or virtual meetups. The more you expose yourself to different digital communication styles, the more natural they will become. Now, let's explore how discussing current events can enrich your language skills. Imagine listening to a news report that states, "Local communities are coming together to address recent flooding." Such statements are filled with formal language and important vocabulary. After listening, try summarizing the news in your own words. The report discussed how neighborhoods are uniting to deal with severe floods. This exercise helps you process information, retain new vocabulary, and practice summarizing, a key skill in both listening and speaking. Another engaging scenario is participating in group discussions or debates. Picture yourself at a community forum where the topic is the impact of social media on daily life. A participant might begin, "I believe social media has revolutionized the way we communicate, but it also presents challenges such as privacy concerns." You might respond with, "I agree that social media has its benefits, but I'm curious about its effects on face-to-face interactions." Engaging in debates not only exposes you to different viewpoints, but also teaches you how to articulate your opinions clearly. Reflect on any group discussion you've been part of. What phrases did you use to express agreement or to politely disagree? Practice these phrases until they feel like an integral part of your conversational toolkit. Next, let's consider the practicalities of everyday shopping. Imagine entering a department store and needing assistance finding an item. You might approach a sales associate and ask, "Excuse me, could you help me locate the electronics section?" The associate might reply, "Yes, it's on the second floor, near the home appliances area." Such interactions, though brief, are essential in daily life. They emphasize the use of polite inquiries, clear directions, and simple language. Visualize yourself in this scenario and practice the key phrases. How would you modify your request if you needed additional information, such as, "Could you please show me where that is?" Repeating these exchanges can make you more comfortable in real-life shopping situations. Let's also look at scenarios where you might need to handle unexpected challenges. Imagine you're out with friends and suddenly the weather changes. You might hear someone say, "It looks like we're in for a downpour. Let's find shelter." In such moments, clear and calm communication is essential. You might add, "I'll grab my umbrella," or ask, "Does anyone know where we can take cover?" These spontaneous conversations require you to be quick on your feet. Reflect on any unexpected situations you've encountered. How did you communicate in the moment? Practice these scenarios with a friend so that when the time comes, you feel ready to respond confidently. Consider next a scenario involving a friendly debate on a light-hearted topic, such as discussing favorite cuisines. Imagine sitting at a dinner party where someone remarks, "Italian food is the best because of its rich flavors and variety." You might respond, "I love Italian food too, but I'm also fond of the spicy kick of Thai cuisine." This type of dialogue helps you practice comparing ideas and expressing preferences. Notice the language used. Words like rich, variety, spicy, and fond add color to your conversation. Ask yourself, which adjectives do you commonly use when describing food or other interests? Practice crafting sentences that incorporate these descriptive words to enhance your communication. Let's now transition to scenarios that involve nonverbal cues and body language. Even though our focus is on listening and speaking, nonverbal elements play a key role. Picture a conversation where a friend is explaining an exciting news story. Even if you cannot see them during a phone call, imagine how their tone of voice conveys excitement. Their laughter, the slight pause before a punchline, and the change in pitch all signal their emotions. While practicing on your own, try to incorporate these elements. Smile as you speak and notice how your tone changes. Even without a visual cue, these subtleties make your speech more engaging and natural. We have now reached a point where each scenario builds upon the previous one, enriching your understanding of real-life English. As you continue your practice, remember that every conversation is a stepping stone on your journey toward fluency. The everyday interactions we've discussed, from ordering food and asking for directions to engaging in professional meetings, participating in cultural events, and even handling unexpected situations, each offer valuable opportunities to practice and improve your listening and speaking skills. Imagine your future self, confidently navigating any situation, whether you're conversing with a stranger in a cafe or leading a meeting at work. Visualize the progress you will make by immersing yourself in these varied scenarios, practicing key phrases, and learning from every interaction. The more you expose yourself to natural, authentic English, the more intuitive your responses will become. So, keep listening, keep speaking, and know that with every conversation, you are becoming a more fluent and confident English speaker. Thank you for joining me, Alex, on English in Fluency today. Don't forget to subscribe for more daily practice, and keep putting yourself out there. Your fluency is just a few conversations away.